Back in 2012, Xbox launched the Summer of Arcade with regular releases of Xbox Live Arcade titles. An atmospheric zombie apocalypse game stood out amongst the crop. Since then, a remastered director's cut was released. Let's see if it's still worth playing. I'm Adam Scott, and this is Deadlight. I distinctly remember the buzz surrounding this game, but this is actually my first time playing it. For those unfamiliar, Deadlight is a 2.5D side-scrolling platformer survival horror game with puzzles wrapped in a visually striking art style. Only 4 years after the initial release, the remastered director's cut was released for PC, PS4, and Xbox One. This version got the 1080p glow-up with a few additional bells and whistles. Deadlight is a total throwback to those classic cinematic platformers from the 80s and early 90s, like Prince of Persia in Flashback, where the platforming was slower and more methodical, and the story takes center stage.
When they stop moving, they die.
Set in Seattle in 1986, Deadlight tells the story of Randall Wayne, a former park ranger who sets out to find his family during a zombie apocalypse. Here, zombies are called shadows. You ever notice they're never called zombies?
What? Rage. Goddamn freaks!
Consumers.
But not zombies. I don't have some earth-shattering point, but along the way, Randall must avoid both zombie, shadow hordes, and a group of vigilantes called the New Law, who are the de facto authority in Seattle. As Randall treks across the city, he begins to question his memory of the events during the early stages of the outbreak, making you wonder what really happened. The story's par for the course if you've seen a zombie movie or two, so don't expect many surprises. That being said, the way the story and gameplay are interwoven keeps things interesting and entertaining throughout, with a good mix of suspense, action, menacing villains, bleak hopelessness, and just straight up zombie goodness. While this isn't exactly terrifying, there's a decent number of butt-clenching moments, and like in any good survival horror game, there's as much focus on avoiding confrontation as engaging in it. The main course for this horror treat is the gameplay, and thankfully, it's really tasty. A survival horror feel in a 2.5D side-scrolling world, with tons of platforming, puzzle solving, near-death encounters, and bombastic set pieces. You never feel like a superhero, you're just a regular guy doing your best to survive. Weapons and ammo are scarce, so your wits are your best defense. The level design encourages you to avoid shadows as much as possible, rather than engaging them in combat. You can lure shadows to their death by calling them into environmental hazards, like chasms or exposed electricity. When combat is unavoidable, you can hack enemies with a fire axe, but watch your stamina since each strike consumes it, leaving you defenseless if you drain it. You'll find a few guns, but they're rarely the best option, with intentionally slow reload times, limited ammo, and they're loud, which isn't ideal if you want to avoid drawing attention. Even when armed to the teeth, if attacked by more than 3 or 4 shadows at a time, forget about it. At points, weapons will be taken away, creating tension and focusing attention on the platforming, or some of the impressive set pieces. As you'd expect, there's a heavy emphasis on platforming, which is mostly set up as parkour-like puzzles, having you navigate various environmental hazards. There's an impressive moveset, with you grabbing onto ledges, pushing boxes, wall jumping, sprinting, rolling, and more, giving you a lot of flexibility in tackling each obstacle. Now, Randall ain't Mario, so expect slower and more grounded platforming. Randall needs to prepare for jumps, and this can take some getting used to. Still, once you've worked out the timing, everything feels intuitive most of the time. There are also optional indicators which will tell you if you can cling onto something, and the jumps are pretty forgiving. Similar to combat, climbing around also consumes stamina. So you can't hang onto ledges or climb ladders for too long or you'll fall. And thankfully, if you happen to die, you'll never lose much progress thanks to the generous checkpoint system. Given that some platforming segments and puzzles might take a few tries, this prevents frustration from ever setting in. The puzzles are a lot of fun too. They're meant to feel realistic, but come on, why would you have to do that? Like, really? Most have you find crate, move crate, climb crate, interspersed with activating generators to lower bridges or flipping switches. And you'll eventually get a slingshot for hitting things out of reach. There were a few puzzles that had me stumped for a minute, although in hindsight they were pretty obvious, often requiring something like wall jumps. And if you enable highlights, the glowing objects point you in the right direction. If you ever get stuck, just give it a minute and you'll figure it out. I believe in you. For the most part, the game has a really good flow to it, even if the occasional puzzle haunts you for a bit. There are tons of hidden collectible items. Some are entries from Randall's diary, revealing more about his backstory. Others are personal memorabilia lost by people during the outbreak. You can also pick up 3 fully playable 80s-style handheld video games, which I thought was pretty cool. ID cards with real-world serial killers like John Wayne Gacy and Jeffrey Dahmer are also strewn about. If you've played the original Deadlight, you'll notice a few tweaks to the director's cut in addition to the polished visuals, including a new survival mode where you're dropped off in a hospital and have to survive as long as you can against an endless zombie ambush. It's a nice touch, but like your mom, there wasn't enough going on to hold my interest for long, so your mileage will vary. Also included in the director's cut is a nightmare difficulty, which was previously available only for PC. Of course, this is harder, but will also give an alternate ending. Cast mostly in silhouette, the art style is all about creating an unsettling atmosphere. The backgrounds are beautifully detailed, with all of the characters bathed in shadows, meant to represent how Randall sees the world. Randall himself is living in a dying world that'll go on without him, and I thought the art style captured this brilliantly. Artist Abel Oros Vicente said this about the visual design. The artistic aspect of Deadlight is the foundation upon which the game is largely built. The game is its atmosphere, and the atmosphere is achieved largely thanks to the visuals. Sounds like an artist. The voice acting is decent, but Randall is a little bit too earnest, if you know what I mean. It's not a bad thing, but when the story goes into B-zombie movie corniness, it's more amusing than anything else.
Then I see it. My house. I have to get to the house. They're in there, waiting for me. That's what I need.
This is a short game. Like, you can complete a run in a single evening. This is very much quality over quantity, without any unnecessary filler. However, completion can be more challenging than you'd expect. To get all of the trophies, you'll need to finish the story, of course, kill enemies in a handful of clever ways, get high scores in the handheld side games, and nab all of the collectibles. Since there's a scene select and none are missable, finding all is pretty easy to do. After the first run though, you'll need to play through the survival mode and finish the game on nightmare difficulty, which has no checkpoints and you'll need to do in a single run. Well, tough. It won't take long. You can do everything in about 10 hours. The original praise was well earned. Even after all these years, Deadlight still holds up. If you want a compelling platformer with a horror feel that can be completed in a single evening while remaining consistently fun throughout, then you should check out Deadlight. Alright, there's Deadlight. If you liked the video, hit like and of course subscribe. And if you want another game that you haven't played, check out my video right here. I want to thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.